Thomas the Tank Engine was feeling very happy. His blue coat shone in the sun, he was right on time, and all around his branch line the countryside seemed prettier than ever before. Beep, beep! Good morning, Percy, he whistled. My branch line is the pride of the line, wouldn't you agree? Yes, Thomas, of course, but... But what, Percy? Out with it. Well, there is another engine with a famous branch line too. Who? Where? Exclaimed Thomas anxiously. His name's Stepeny. He's far away, but the Fat Controller says he may visit us. When? Oh, someday. And Percy hurried away. Meanwhile, Stepeny was puffing purposefully along his line. It runs through fields and forests, but isn't very long, which made him feel a little sad. Later, he saw Rusty. The little diesel had helped save Stepeny from scrap. Everyone's been so kind, but my railway is so short, and I do miss a good long run. I think you should tell Driver too, replied Rusty. I'm sure he'll understand. Stepeny soon discovered that indeed he did. Do you know, Stepeny, I feel just the same way. That evening, Stepney's driver had exciting news. Guess what, Stepeny? The Fat Controller has invited us to visit the other engines on his railway. Manager agreed. It'll be a really long run to get there. Oh, thank you, sighed Stepeny. They set off next morning. By now, all the other engines were talking about Stepeny. He runs a famous branch line. Did you know that? Said Percy. Thomas was feeling a little jealous. Huh, it may be famous, but my branch is first on the line. Everyone knows that, too. And he huffed away to fetch his coaches. Look, squeaked Percy. Why have they all come? There is no train yet. But Percy was wrong. The signal dropped, and from far away an engine whistled. Here he comes, yelled Douglas. Stepeny puffed proudly through the junction. All the engines were pleased to see him. I hope you'll meet Thomas too, said Edward. You both have branch lines to be proud of. Then Stepeny set off to help Duck shunt coaches in the yards, and they worked happily together all afternoon. At last, Thomas arrived. Sorry, can't talk. It's time for my last branch line train. Mustn't be late. He was hardly out of sight when the engines heard shouting at the station. Moments later came the alarm. Stop all trains! The signalman answered the telephone. A special, is it? I see. Thomas was impatient. Why are we waiting? My passengers are being delayed. Sorry, Thomas, said his driver. We're being shunted to allow another train to pass. Soon, they heard an unfamiliar puffing sound. There was Stepeny with headlamps swaying and whistle blowing. He gathered speed and disappeared. Well, bust my boiler, said Thomas the Tank Engine. Next morning, Thomas was still fuming. Shunted, and on my own branch too. It's a disgrace. I'm sorry, said Stepeny. I was a special. Why? An important passenger arrived just as you left. He ordered a special train and Duck let me take it. We had a splendid run, but, finished Thomas kindly, it can make an engine nervous not to know the line. Exactly, said Stepeny. You're such an expert. This made Thomas feel much better. He couldn't be cross anymore and instead began telling Stepeny all about his branch line.
Picture a land where the sky is so blue, a storybook land of wonder, a magical island just waiting for you. Island of Sodor will make your dreams come true. Imagine a place where the sun always smiles, the valleys are green as can be. The friends that you love are all waiting for you. Island of Sodor will make your dreams come true. Children, follow the dream to a land of magical land where dreams come true.
Follow the road that leads to your dream, over the hills and mountains. Look for the skies with stars in their eyes.
Island of Sodor will make your dreams come true. Children, follow the dream to a land of make-believe. The island of Sodor, magical land where dreams come
One night, Henry and Gordon were alone with James. Although the Fat Controller was beginning to think well of him, whenever a chance came, the other engines would talk of nothing but bootlaces. "Remember the time one had to be used to get you out of trouble, James," they would tease. James tried to get his own back, talking about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills. But they wouldn't listen. "You talk too much, little James," said Gordon. "A fine, strong engine like me has something to talk about. I'm the only engine who can pull the express. When I'm not there, they need two engines. Think of that. I've pulled expresses for years and have never once lost my way. I seem to know the right line by instinct." Every wise engine knows, of course, that the signalman works the points to make engines run on the right lines, but Gordon was so proud he had forgotten. "Wake up, James," said Gordon next morning. "It's nearly time for the express." "What are you doing? Odd jobs?" "Oh, well, we all have to begin somewhere, don't we? Run along now and get my coaches. Don't be late." James went to get Gordon's coaches. They were all shining with lovely new paint. He was careful not to bump them, and they followed him smoothly into the station, singing happily, "We're going away, we're going away." "I wish I was going with you," said James. "I should love to pull the express and go flying along the line." Gordon, with much noise and blowing of steam, got ready to back onto the train. The Fat Controller was on the train with other important people, and as soon as they heard the guard's whistle, Gordon started. "Look at me now," he puffed, and the coaches glided after him. "Poop, poop, 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 poop. Goodbye, little James. See you tomorrow." James watched the train disappear and then went back to work. He pushed some trucks into their proper sidings and went to fetch the coaches for another train. James had just brought the coaches to the platform when he heard a mournful noise. There was Gordon trying to sidle into the station without being noticed. "Hello, Gordon. Is it tomorrow?" asked James. Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. "Did you lose your way, Gordon?" said James. "No, it was lost for me. I was switched off the main line onto the loop. I had to go all round and back again." "Perhaps it was instinct," said James. Meanwhile, all the passengers hurried to the booking office. "We want our money back," they shouted. But the Fat Controller climbed on a trolley and blew the guard's whistle, so loudly that they all stopped to look at him. Then he promised them a new train at once. "Gordon can't do it," he said. "Will you pull it for us, James?" "Yes, sir, I'll try." So James was coupled on and everyone got in. "Do your best, James," said the Fat Controller. Come along, puffed James. You're pulling us well, sang the coaches. Bridges and stations flashed by, the passengers cheered, and they soon reached the station. Everyone said thank you to James, and the Fat Controller was very impressed. "Well done," he said. "Would you like to pull the express sometimes?" "Yes, please," answered James. Next day, when James came by, Gordon was pushing trucks. "I like some quiet work for a change," he said. "I'm teaching these trucks manners. You did well with those coaches, I hear." "Good, we'll show them." And he gave his trucks a bump. James and Gordon are now good friends. James sometimes takes the express to give Gordon a rest. Gordon never talks about bootlaces, and they are both quite agreed on the subject of trucks.
Skarloey had been to the works to be mended. He felt much better. Rusty the Diesel was helping him off his truck. Skarloey hadn't met the little diesel before. Rusty seems a kindly sort of engine, he thought to himself. "I help to mend the line and do odd jobs," explained Rusty. "I hear everyone is looking forward to seeing you again. Come on." Peter Sam was feeling depressed. He was still getting over his accident, but he wanted to start work again. The Fat Controller wouldn't let him. "Another day's rest will do you good," he said. "Besides, I've got a surprise for you." "For me, sir? How nice, sir. What is it, sir?" "Wait and see." The surprise was Skarloey. "Oh," said Peter Sam, "I'm glad you've come home." They lit Skarloey's fire and he sizzled happily. "I feel all excited," he said, "just like a young engine. Now, tell me all the news." "I see you've met Rusty," said Peter Sam. "Yes, I like that diesel." "So do I," replied Peter Sam. "It's a pity Duncan doesn't." "Who is Duncan?" "He came as a spare engine after my accident," replied Peter Sam. "Is he useful?" "He keeps busy and I'm sure he means well, but he's bouncy and rude. He sings and sways and swivels around. His driver calls it rock and roll." "I understand," said Skarloey gravely. His driver interrupted. "Duncan has done it again. He's stuck in a tunnel. Come on, old boy. We'll have to get him out." Skarloey was pleased. He wanted to run and looked forward to meeting Duncan. They found the guard's van and some workmen and hurried up the line. "How nice and smooth the rails are," thought Skarloey. "They've mended all the old bumps. The little diesel helped do that. What a difference Rusty's made to the line." Quite soon they found Duncan. He was stuck at the far end of the tunnel, and he was very cross. I'm a plain blunt engine, as speak as I find. Tunnels should be tunnels and not rabbit holes. This railway is no good at all. Don't be silly, snapped his driver. This tunnel is quite big enough for engines who don't rock and roll. It took some while to clear away the rocks and set Duncan free again. At last, Skarloey was able to push Duncan and his coaches safely through. The guard's van was left on the siding, and the workmen stayed to make sure everything was safe. Duncan grumbled all the way home, but Skarloey paid no attention. Later, the Fat Controller spoke severely to Duncan. Listen to me. There is nothing wrong with that tunnel. You stuck in it because you tried to do rock and roll. Tunnels are not dance floors, and you are not a pop star. The Fat Controller gave his full attention to Duncan's funnel. If it happens again, he ended ominously, I shall find ways to cut you down to size. In other words, your career is on the line. Need I say more? Duncan thought the Fat Controller had said quite enough, and he remained completely silent and still for at least a whole evening.